Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. We open on a college campus with Jim Halsey picking up his girlfriend for a road trip. Grace Andrews joins her boyfriend in his 1970 Oldsmobile to meet up with their friends for spring break. As they drive down the highway, she changes clothes instead of just doing it before leaving to show you the abs on this girl. Jim then hangs out the window and cleans a bug off the windshield, getting all of the watery guts in his face like, what the hell, dude? I guess it's to show that he's not the brightest, because there's a scene where they're pulled over to use the restroom and he's like, ooh, look, a penny. By nightfall they're driving through a rainstorm and Jim's distracted and unable to see with all the bug juice in his eyes that he almost hits a man standing in the middle of the highway. Jim does a full 360 and wants to offer the man some assistance, but Gracie tells him, you crazy, we need to not get stabbed tonight. Listening to his brain in the passenger seat, Jimmy drives away, leaving the Hitcher to catch a ride with somebody else. The couple pull up at a gas station a few miles down the road where Grace demonstrates her knowledge of ding-dongs. Along with his tan sleeves and lazy eye, the clerk's impressed by her processed food knowledge and gives Gracie the key to the bathroom. Jim sticks a wiener in his gob and fills up the car with gas when a big rig drops off the Hitcher and eye contact is understandably avoided. Introducing himself as John Ryder, he pretends to phone a concerned family member waiting on his arrival and wears a wedding ring to appear trustworthy. He tells Jim don't worry about leaving him for dead and asks for a lift to the nearest motel since his brain wasn't around to say no. She's made to sit in the back seat as her boyfriend agreed. We give the creepy Hitcher a lift 12 miles down the road. The first few minutes of their journey he's perfectly polite until he begins asking rude questions about the babe in the back seat. Jim's like, don't you have a wife, dude? But Ryder admits to not being married and then takes Jim's cell phone and snaps it. Grace tries to call the cops on her own, but the knife-wielding psycho pulls her from the back seat and holds the blade to her eye. He tells Jim that he wants him to save her, then holds it to the boyfriend's throat and says to repeat after me that I want to die. Instead he says that he doesn't and slams on the brakes, sending the Hitcher's head into the windshield. Jim then kicks the crap out of Ryder while Gracie opens the door and the Hitcher falls out onto the road while his almost victims get away. The pair aren't able to call the police because Gracie's phone also fell out of the door with Ryder and Screw going back for it. She gets some shut-eye while Jim drives for hours, but he gets so sleepy that he needs to pull over before crashing. Suddenly Ryder smashes the window and drags him out, but Jim wakes up having had a nightmare and needing therapy. These kids are already mentally screwed up, so Grace wants to call the road trip off, but Jimbo talks her back into it. As they continue down the highway like nothing happened, they get passed by a station wagon with a family inside. Sitting in the back seat with the young kids is Ryder, who waves like he isn't about to kill everybody in there with him. Jim speeds up alongside the wagon to warn the parents, but he should really be watching the road because he almost has a head-on collision. He swerves off of the road into a ravine, completely destroying the car, and we don't get to see this totaled beauty for the rest of the movie. The imbeciles pull themselves out and back onto the road, but the family just keep driving, so I'm sure karma is right around the corner. It isn't long before Jim and Grace come across the station wagon pulled over to the side of the road and find the family all butchered in their seats. The father is still alive but has a nice piece of evidence sticking out of his stomach, so the couple try to save him. Grace drives the car to the nearest town while Jim asks if the mother's okay, but no, she's most clearly a corpse. Here's Johnny in a Dodge Ram, who begins doing its namesake by ramming the couple just enough to keep them from leaving the road. Ryder drives out of sight for a bit as Grace comes across a restaurant and runs inside while Jim stays with the dying man. She tells the waitress to call the police, then goes to the bathroom to grab towels but sees the truck pull up outside. The towels wouldn't have helped as the father just bleeds out and the person poking around outside of the bathroom door just leaves. When Grace notices that the truck's gone, she walks out but gets arrested by the sheriff for the dead body on her boyfriend's lap. They're interrogated down at the local police station, starting with Gracie while Jim is kept locked in a cell. The sheriff leaves Gracie alone in the room before the Hitcher is shown tracing her face with blood on the two-way mirror. He then unlocks the door so that she finds the sheriff and his two deputies murdered, but at least Ryder left the dogs alone. Grace grabs the cops' keys and a revolver while Ryder goes downstairs and appears to Jim outside of his cell. He tells the kid to figure out why he's doing this to them, then disappears before Gracie comes down to release her boyfriend. More police arrive, and for some reason these two run out the back door and into the hills instead of just saying what happened. I mean, some cops think they're the killers, but the lieutenant in charge, Esteridge, immediately finds the drawing in blood and knows there's a third suspect. Meanwhile, the fugitives argue as Gracie blames Jim for picking up the psycho in the first place, and I can't blame her. The Ram comes crashing down in front of them as somehow the Hitcher hurled it off this cliff for a little unwarranted daylight jump scare. The couple make their way to a junkyard to try to find help when seeing Ryder approaching with a rifle in the distance, so hide in a shed. Jimbo stands ready to take a shot at the door, but when a young deputy arrives, Gracie convinces him to hand themselves over. However, when he does and the cop tries to cuff her boyfriend, Grace points the gun at him as these two just make the dumbest decisions. They rob this man of his weapon and car. Then when more cops arrive, Ryder shoots the rookie with a rifle, so they think Grace did it. Framed for murder, the pair escape while Esteridge hears that Grace shot a cop over the radio and thinks, hot dog, maybe I'm wrong. Jim and Grace are now driving the dead officer's car down the road with more in pursuit and a helicopter overhead. Grace tells Esteridge over the radio that they're innocent, but he says that they'll need to turn themselves in, which I thought was obvious. Just then one super cop hangs out his window and begins busting caps like they killed his cousin until blowing out the tires. Ryder in his new Firebird pulls up alongside the cops and shoots a driver who swerves into another and both flip. John then pit maneuvers the remaining patrol car and shoots the helicopter pilot with a handgun because he's just that good. It crashes off screen for budgetary restraints and Ryder just cruises past, leaving the couple wondering what the hell is going on. They ditch the car and reach a truck stop motel by nightfall, where they must break inside one of the rooms without being seen. Gracie tries to use the phone, but it only connects to the front desk, so they just shower together instead because why not? Jim says that he's sorry for getting them into this mess, then leaves to find a payphone while Grace finishes up and watches some TV. She falls asleep, then wakes to see a ding-dong sitting on the nightstand, so assumes that it's Jim sliding into bed. It turns out to be Ryder, so Grace hits him with the phone, then a lamp, and manages to escape into the bathroom. Grabbing the gun, Ryder immediately backs off as Gracie comes out of the motel room looking for her boyfriend. She wanders around the truck stop, prompting the front desk to report a crazy woman waving a gun around to the police. Grace discovers Jim with his legs chained to a big rig and his arms to the trailer as Ryder threatens to tear him in half. He tells Grace that if his foot comes off the clutch, then her boyfriend's dead, which contradicts what he wants her to do. Gracie is ordered to get in the cab and shoot Ryder between the eyes as the police show up and surround the truck. She's unable to do it like he said because of the clutch, so Ryder calls her useless and rips her boyfriend in half. Next scene, Grace is sitting in the police precinct being checked out by a doctor as she's surely suffering PTSD. The lieutenant says that John Ryder is the name of a missing persons and that the man they've got sitting in that cell is a ghost. Esteridge can't allow Gracie to be released until he takes her to a trauma center, but first he interrogates the Hitcher. In what could be a good moment for script writing, all John says to the question of why did you kill all these people is why not. Had enough of him, the police escort the drifter to prison in a van while the lieutenant and Grace begin their journey home by following it. Whatever this guy's name is escapes captivity when he breaks his thumb to remove the cuffs and slashes the guard's neck. He then uses his gun to shoot the officers in the front seat, causing the van to flip and crash into an oncoming vehicle. That in turn collides with the lieutenant's, leaving his leg pinned in the wreckage and unable to prevent Grace from taking his gun. She wants to end this once and for all, but should have listened to the cop's warning that she doesn't know what the hell she's doing. Basically just delivering the Hitcher a fully loaded gun, John locks her in the back of the van with the corpses and sets it on fire. He sees Esteridge radio for backup, but he should have brought a backup gun because John just strolls up and puts a bullet in his head. Grace grabs a guard's shotgun from the front cab, but then kicks open the back doors and leaps out all dramatic-like. She's too late to save the lieutenant, but finally gives the killer what he wanted when she shoots him in the back. Grace shoots him again and the psycho says that it feels good, doesn't it, but she's beyond feeling anything. Completely emotionless, the final girl shoots him in the head, killing the Hitcher and just walking away. And the movie ends.